Hello, welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel. It's good to be back. It's great to see you. It's great to be back with the main man, Sam Ucko, as well. We've been away for a couple of weeks now. Obviously, we dropped the Rob Edwards interview, which was absolutely amazing to sit down with the new boss and talk through his style of play, what he's like as a man manager, what plans he has for Watford this season, and looking ahead to the upcoming season. And obviously, it's a big day in next season because the fixtures for the 2022-23 campaign have come out today, released at 9 o'clock in the morning. There's some interesting subplots that could be building, but we'll get through all of that, any fixtures that stand out and any thoughts you guys have in the show today. Sam, first off, mate, how's it going? How have you been last couple of weeks since we dropped the interview?
Yeah, no, I've been good. Do you know what? I very rarely appreciate the break from football, but I think this year it was quite needed. I've enjoyed sort of having the reset, but now I just can't wait to get going. Seeing the players back in pre-season, when the training kits come out, that Rob Edwards interview yesterday, the club released, absolutely brilliant. So can't wait to get going now. Great to be recording again on the channel live as well. And yeah, thank you everyone as well for the feedback from the Rob Edwards interview. It was a really good response to it. And I think the main thing I got out of it was I think Rob came across really, really well. I think he came across as not just, someone who knows what he's doing tactically. I mean, that remains to be seen. That, the results will prove that. But he just came across as a top bloke. And we can just say as well that off camera, when we spoke to him after a tiny bit before as well, top man, genuinely such a nice guy. So, I'm fully behind him, and I really hope that, this season goes well for his sake more than anyone else.
100%, mate. I think it's what's really refreshing. I put a tweet out yesterday. What's really refreshing about the atmosphere around the club so far, and obviously Twitter isn't the whole fan base, but what we've seen on social media is everyone's excited for next season. I know there's been a couple of transfer bits that maybe put a downer on it for some people, but to have a head coach in who's so passionate about the job at hand, who seems to really get the football club. Of course, it's early days, as you say, Sam, but from the interviews you've seen with us, from the Rookery end, with Adam Leventhal, with Andrew French and the Watford Observer, you just get this idea that this guy really gets Watford Football Club. And as you say, Sam, that was the big thing that stood out for me when we met him, even as you say, off camera, which was great to speak to him before. He was so welcoming, made us feel at ease straight away. Because obviously there's a little period, isn't it, beforehand where you're kind of like sussing each other out, and it didn't even feel like that with him. It's straight in, and he was so warm. I think that was the biggest thing, so charismatic, so warm. And even afterwards, we're having a chat about what's to do with the town centre. We mentioned the two
about Nando's. But do you know what? I know we speak about off camera, but it was the small things, like the first line of the interview when you went, "Welcome to Watford," and he goes, "No, welcome to our dressing room." And it's the small things like that I just think, not just for us two, but just generally, I think for fans, it's just so welcoming to see. And something else I got out of it, we'll do a proper season preview at some point, was that he's someone who just, talk about getting the football club. As someone who played under Graham Taylor, he spoke so highly of Graham Taylor. Today I saw an interview with Sky, which I put out on the WD18 socials as well, where he spoke about Elton John as well. So he's someone who knows about the football club. He's someone who gets it. So I think it's, really exciting times ahead.
Absolutely. We'll get into that straight away. Just before we do, thank you to everyone who's watching today. Amazing support at the minute. We really, really do appreciate it. And if you'd like to drop us a follow on socials, at WD18 fans on Twitter and Instagram. A couple of hellos in the chat. Hannah, so good to see you. Hope everyone is well. Not a fan of how early the season is starting, the winter break, but feeling positive for the season. You know what, Hannah? I'm so happy that we're not starting in July. I think that for me, I just didn't want this season to start in July, Sam. I've always felt the season has to start in August. Like mentally, for me, I'm not ready till August.
Do you know what? I was having to think about the winter break though. That is there a chance that Watford and England could be playing on the same day?
Oh, Christ.
Because of the World Cup. Can you imagine a 12:30 Watford before going back for England in the quarterfinal of the World Cup or something?
Can you imagine about Watford?
I can't wait to be on the long coach back from an away day or something and having to stream it on my phone. So.
Oh my God. No, on a real one, at the minute we should be watching England playing in the World Cup, but that's another story. I just, you know what, Sam, as soon as you mentioned that, I thought moon under the water, and I thought you're not getting in there. Like, it'd just be absolutely even. Captain Matato says, I hope we keep Rob for years to come. I have faith in him, and his attitude and passion is what this club has been missing. Hornet for Life just on Rob said, yes, he's very personable, absolutely, and very switched on tactically. Absolutely buzzing to have him as our new man in the dugout. Completely agree. And as I say, Sam, it's great to see everyone behind him. But today we're going to be talking through Watford's fixtures for next season. Now, it's, you know what, whenever there's like a bit of a build-up, Sam, toward, we've always, like, every time we've done a video, like over the last few years on the channel, everyone says the same thing. You play everyone twice. Having said that, though, as I mentioned at the top of the show, some subplots and narratives can start to build, particularly at the start of the season. So, do you know what? Let's go through the key fixtures, and we'll start off with that first month for Watford. And on paper, Sam, I think it's probably one of the toughest first 6 games, would you say, out of the kind of the rest of the teams in the Championship?
Definitely, yeah. You know, if any of the players thought that we were going to be in for an easy ride in the Championship, I think that first month or so will, you know, be a wake up call. And I think for Rob Edwards as well, we'll be able to get an early insight tactically into perhaps, you know, how we cope in those bigger games. Yes, we might have preferred sort of, I don't want to say the easier games because there are no easy games in the Championship, but teams who won't be up there in the playoff spaces, perhaps just to, you know, have some time for Rob to implement his philosophy a bit more. In these games, you know, there's going to be less margin for error. And I know it's going to be Championship quality, but, you know, if we are going to go up, we're going to have to beat those teams. So there isn't really opportunity in the league for us to sort of bed into it. It's going to have to be straight away getting those results. So, you know, it is a difficult start, but, you know, if we are going to go up this season, we have to beat those teams.
Yeah, 100%. I also think, you know, just to flip it can work both ways, can't it, as well? People are saying it's one of the hardest first 6 games of the season, but actually, or 7 games, sorry, of the season, but actually, you know, flip that and we get a really, you know, run of positive results out of those first 7 games. You know, you look at Sheffield United at home under the lights of the Vic, first game of the season. I don't think you could have asked for a better game, personally, to kick it off. I think for Rob as well, I think he would have wanted a big game like that, you know, on Sky, which is great. But I think for your first game, I always think you want the atmosphere to be absolutely rocking. And I think that first game under the lights on Sky Monday night, it's going to be rocking in it, Sam. I think that could really set the tone, couldn't it? You know, and we mention a lot of the times that, you know, over the season it is going to be 46 games. It's going to be a long, long season, and we certainly won't. I don't think the outcome of the season will be judged at the end of August, but certainly after those first 7 games, we'll get. Do you reckon we'll get a picture of how this team's going to be playing and how this team's going to do this season?
Do you know what? I've always been of the philosophy that you don't really know what a team's like or what a Championship table will look like until the Easter period, until that Easter weekend, which is quite, you know, it's towards the end. It's just important for me that we get a good start. I know, you know, we've seen teams start badly and end up, you know, doing brilliantly. Nottingham Forest are the prime example. Sheffield United didn't start last season too well, and they were, you know, they got a playoff place by the end of it. I just feel that as a club, you know, we're going to be aiming for automatic promotions. At least we hope we are. If we get some signings in, that we are going to have to start well. And I think that we're going to have to, you know, have a clear picture of where this team are going. Yes, it's still going to take players time to sort of bed themselves into Rob's philosophy and what they're trying to do on the pitch. But at the same time, you know, results are going to be important. And as I said, you know, before, there's going to be less margin for error and less sort of time for players to, you know, make mistakes in there, I think. So, you know, we are going to have some sort of clear picture after those first 7 games.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, again, Lewis makes an interesting point here. I hadn't really thought about this. First month's fixtures makes organising pre-season matches so important. I think Rob said today in an interview with BBC Three Counties that they're off to Austria as kind of the standard pre-season tour for Watford. But it does feel like, well, number one, I think there was someone pointed out something interesting, Sam, from the training video yesterday, that they saw like a clip on the board of, you know, in the video, and it was a 3-4-1-2 formation. Someone could correct me on that if I'm wrong, but it was a 3-4-1-2 formation. We'll get an idea of this Watford team by that point. I think, you know, we'll touch on transfers this weekend, Sam, but do you feel that, you know, the next couple of weeks we have to do our business early, like we have to get it in before a certain date? Is there like a, you know, we mentioned before last season that there's a deadline for Watford before those 3 games against Newcastle, Norwich and Burnley, I think it was. In your head, have you set an expectation of, you know, when we need to get our business done by, or are you very much thinking we will go to the final day?
I'm relaxed because I don't want to rush into any sort of business that, you know, we might make a mistake with. In my head, I'd like to have everything done the week before the season starts. So there's a week after that to prepare for the first game, get everyone in, get everyone ready. I mean, we've seen already, I mean, yesterday at the start of that video, two main things I got out of it was one, it was interesting that there was no, I mean, they probably did fitness that morning, but Rob wasn't interested in doing fitness and they wanted to get the ball straight out, start working on shape, that sort of thing, which was, really encouraging to see. Second thing is the start of the video, he goes, I'm not going to do a proper introduction now because not everyone's here. And I don't think he's going to be able to do that proper introduction pretty much until a week before the season starts, when everyone's back, when we know who's there, when we know who's gone. So it is going to be, really important, I think, that we get most of the squad done a week before the season starts. Obviously, there'll be small bits of business as well, bringing players in, players leaving. But yeah, it's going to be, we're seeing more outgoings at the moment, which is fine. It's just about bringing players in as well.
And as Sam said, there's been a couple of outgoings, but we're going to do a video on Sunday night talking through a bit more of the transfer chat, so don't worry about that. We'll get to that at some point. Hornet for Life in the comment section. Yeah, I agree. I think having Burnley, obviously under new manager Vincent Kompany, in the first few games will be difficult, but they might get a manager bounce. Tom thinks we need to get in players in a couple of weeks before the season starts, ideally. Someone said, Elliot said, reckon the Pozzos are still waiting for Jacob to get the whiteboard out and show who's better than leaving before signing everyone. Actually, watch this space, Elliot. It's gonna come out very, very soon. So, Sam, we talked through that first month, a difficult start for Watford, and could be potentially playing against Troy Deeney away from home on the 16th. But that's obviously subject. I think the Commonwealth Games is in Birmingham, so that might change. Keep an eye on that.
Can I just say, side point as well, so annoying that when I'm, because I'm at the university in Birmingham as well, all three of our Birmingham games are when I'm not at uni. It's so annoying. West Brom away on the second game, Birmingham away on game 3 or 4, and both of those games are subject to change apparently, and Coventry away is during Easter. So absolute nightmare with that one.
Shado's sharp on it though. West Brom game will be moved due to the Commonwealth Games. That was the one. So keep an eye on that. What fans, before you put your train tickets. Moving on. So Sam, when you get the fixtures out, which games are you looking at immediately? Which ones are you an opening day, Boxing Day, final day sort of man, or are you someone who just looks across the board?
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit thrown off today because you sort of have you have the couple of weeks gap in the middle of the season as well. I'm very much first game of the season, last game of the season before anything else. I quite like having a look at sort of the run-in that you have at the end of the season. I think particularly in the Championship, that's going to be so important. And also, I think something more important in the Championship as well than, I think the Premier League, the Christmas period is so important. I think the Easter period in the Championship is as important. We saw when we got promoted in 2015, it was that run of games, Middlesbrough, Derby, Millwall away, where we sort of, we did quite well over those games. And I think that pushed us closer to the finish line. Last season, when we got promoted, or 2 seasons ago now, that was that Middlesbrough away game when we drew. I can't remember off the top of my head the others, but it's a really sort of important period. So I was looking at that period as well. So yeah, I'm really excited now.
Do you know what? That's such a touch, actually, that Watford have their first and last game at home. I always think that's really nice when you can get both of those. And that doesn't happen every single year. So fingers crossed we'll be seeing a promotion party after the Stoke game on the final day. And opening day, as I mentioned, I think that's a really big one. Obviously, the two games that people will pick out straight away is the derby against Luton, which is obviously going to happen with fans for the first time since the early 2000s. It's going to be tasty for sure. I think, as Robbie mentioned it today, the supporters, it's going to mean a lot to them, and it's nice to know that he recognises that. Sam, I guess the biggest thing is the timing of those, because there'll be a lot of kind of build up towards those two games. I think probably the one more so towards the end of the season at Kenilworth Road. I think the build up will be big for the Vicarage Road game, just because it's the first one with fans in a long time. But I think actually in terms of the kind of impact on the season, the Luton game away from home is the one, right, that I think I've penciled in anyway will be really important come the end of the season.
Yeah, we sort of saw, I think a couple of years ago, it was at a similar point in the season when we lost 1-0 there. And, it didn't ultimately impact us too much, but it could have very easily thrown us off. With fans in the stadium back at Kenilworth Road, their first derby game against us, with fans there for absolutely years, same as us, it's going to be a difficult atmosphere to play in. It will be intimidating. It will be fiery. And I just hope that, say we are going for automatics, we have a little bit of a cushion there, a bit more margin for error. I keep on talking about margin for error because I think in the Championship, a lot of it comes down to, how can you afford to miss these chances? Can you afford to make mistakes in these games? And I hope we do have enough room for error in the Luton game, because, it's going to be a nervy one. Form will go out the window, whether they're, fighting for relegation, we're towards the top of the league, vice versa. Form will go out the window, particularly at Kenilworth Road, I think, where, it'll be, as I say, a really intimidating atmosphere. So let's hope that, we're fighting at the right end of the table and we have, as I say, enough room for error.
Yeah, absolutely. And be interested to hear what you guys think of kind of the positioning of that game. The other kind of key games that people have put out is the last 3 games of the season, Sam. So obviously, before we get into that, we've got Millwall on Boxing Day at home, and then Norwich away on New Year's Day, which is a difficult start to the new year, because I'd imagine Norwich will be around the playoffs at least come next season. But Sam, the final 3 games, people look at the first 3 and then the final 3. So we've got Hull away, Sunderland away, and then Stoke at home as the last 3. Any initial feelings from that? Obviously, we won't get an idea of how the teams are going to be shaping up, but on paper, that does look quite tough.
I was talking to a friend of the channel, Sean Walker, earlier, and Hull away, 3rd last game of the season. Cannot wait for Ozan Tufan to end our promotion hopes. It is. I mean, he's just made a move to Hull, if you're not aware of it. Look, I mean, as I say, I do hope that we are in a really strong position by that point. There's no easy game in the Championship. We have to be honest, and I think Hull and Sunderland will both probably be mid-table next season. Perhaps Hull might be challenging for a playoff place, but they both should be pretty much safe, or not really pushing for playoffs, in my opinion, next season. So that their main incentive will be to sort of ruin the party. So that is if we're sort of up in the sort of upper tier of the league. So it is a tough ending. It's a really difficult ending. Stoke at home on the last day as well. Like Ozan Tufan could have Ben Wilmot ruining the party. So Luke O'Nien for Sunderland. Now, as you said, there are a lot of subplots in the Championship, aren't there? A lot of subplots in there. So there's incentives for different players. No easy games, and it's a difficult ending for us.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I know. I remember when do you remember when Wilmot came back for the Carabao Cup game?
Yeah.
I remember he put a tweet out because they beat us, didn't they? Was it the second round? Yeah, it was the second round. Yeah. He'll be looking to get a double over us. Look, I think the only other kind of 2 games to mention, obviously we are going to have to play everyone twice. There is only so much we can dig into these fixtures, but they're the key lines anyway, is obviously playing Mr. Troy Deeney, Watford legend, former Watford skipper. Obviously after the first 3 games, I think it's the 4th game of the season, and then the return is the 14th of March when he comes back to Vicarage Road. So look, I think he'll get a great. Of course, he will. He'll get a fantastic reception from Watford fans on both days. I think it'll probably be quite weird for him, having spent such a long period of his life at one club and having such an affinity for that club. And there'll be a lot of build up, which is probably different actually to the Premier League. I think there'll be a lot more build up, maybe about kind of, as you mentioned, Sam, the subplots around some of these games. But just a word on Troy playing him next season. How's that going to be as a fan?
Yeah, so I mean, I spoke to Troy. I spoke to Troy a few weeks ago, actually. I just had a question about something in Birmingham, and I mean, he was saying, I was asking how things were, and he was saying, he thinks it's going to be really weird next season playing against us, particularly the game at Vicarage Road. He did mention he's got a feeling it'll be under the lights, the game against us. So watch this space if he's got any in the know knowledge. So yeah, it'll be really weird, and I really hope if the reception when he came back for Chelsea at home this season was anything to go by, then all until he scores that penalty against us in front of the Rookery and we lose 1-0. So yeah, can't wait for that. Looking forward to seeing Troy, and hopefully we can do the double over him.
You just know that game, as Shane says, will be live on Sky. Like it would be stupid if it wasn't. The only other thing I was going to say was, he was right, Sam, because the St Andrews game is going to be under the lights. It's a 7:45 kickoff. Yeah. So he obviously knew quite a while back. But he did. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think it'll be obviously we want to win both games, but it'll be great to see Troy as well. Before we wrap up, Sam, how are we feeling going into the rest of the window? There's as I said, we'll talk more on Sunday, and this is just a brief one to react to the fixtures. But what's your general vibe at the minute with everything that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, just the last thing on fixtures as well. In the space of 4 days, we got Millwall away and Luton at home, which should get quite tasty.
That is tasty.
Yeah. Look, I say we'll talk more about it on Sunday properly. I am happy with the direction that we're moving in so far this summer in terms of having a clear out. The likes Daniel Batman, Philip Zinkernagel, Cucho Hernandez have all moved on. We can expect Ismaila Sarr and Emmanuel Dennis to have a bit more movement next week, I reckon. West Ham seem to be stepping up their interest in the pair of them. So I think that those two will be sorted out soon as well. And I'm sure a few other players will go as well. I'm happy with that. It's about getting players in now. We've missed out on Benicofobie. What's the name of the striker that we've just signed? It's just left my mind.
Bio.
Yeah, Bio. Yeah. So hopefully he'll come good as well. But I do think we need to address key areas of the squad quickly so Rob can really instill them into the squad. So, we'll talk more about it on Sunday. But so far this summer, I'm happy with the direction that we're going in.
Yeah, absolutely. Just last comment. Will Sunday be a call-in stream along with the transfers? Yeah, it can be. If you'd like to get involved with the show on Sunday, that'd be absolutely great. And we love having you on the show. So if you want to get involved on Sunday and talk a few transfers ahead of the Championship season and talk through the rest of the window and all the rumours and bits and bobs that have happened so far, we're going to try and increase the content going into the new season. But Sunday's show will be a good one, a long one, talking about some of the transfer activity. Obviously, we've got Zinkernagel to talk about. We've got Cucho, Vakun Isuf Bio, who's just joined as well. And then we'll obviously some potential incomings too. So, great stuff, guys. Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know it's a bit of a short one today. But we'll be back very, very soon for some more content. We'll see you on Sunday, guys. Have a great rest of your week. See you on Sunday. Fantastic weekend. God, it's a good time to be a Watford fan. Lovely atmosphere. Take care, guys, and we'll speak to you very, very soon. I'll be on it.